Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Let me know what you think and don't forget to subscribe. I had been alone in the house before, plenty of times. An afternoon here, a quiet evening there. I thought I understood what loneliness felt like inside these walls. I didn't understand anything. The night my parents left, it was raining lightly. Not a storm. Just enough to blur the streetlights and make the windows reflect more than they showed. I stood at the front door, watching their car pull away, the tires hissing against the wet road. My mother waved. I waved back. Then the car turned the corner, and the house exhaled. I felt it more than I heard it, a subtle shift in pressure, like stepping underwater. I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, then stood there longer than necessary with my hand still on the metal. "You're fine," I told myself. The words sounded wrong in the empty hallway. The house was quiet, but not peacefully so. It wasn't silent either. There were small sounds, pipes clicking, the refrigerator humming, the soft tick of the clock above the stairs. Together they formed a kind of rhythm, uneven and irregular, like a heartbeat that couldn't settle. I went room to room, turning on lights. The glow made me feel safer, even though it also created long shadows that stretched in ways I didn't like. When every room was lit, I stood in the middle of the living room and listened. Nothing unusual. I made dinner, ate too fast, left the TV on for company. Every laugh track felt invasive, like strangers mocking me from behind the walls. Around 11, I heard the first thing that didn't belong. It was subtle, a soft sound from upstairs, not a creak, not a footstep, a shift, like someone adjusting their weight on a bed. I muted the TV. The sound didn't repeat. I waited a full minute before laughing nervously and blaming the house. Old wood, temperature change, normal explanations. Still, I didn't go upstairs right away. When I finally did, I paused at the bottom of the stairs. The hallway light was on, spilling yellow light over the landing. My bedroom door was open, exactly as I'd left it. Nothing was out of place. I brushed my teeth, changed clothes, and got into bed. The rain had stopped, leaving the world outside unnaturally quiet. No cars, no wind, just the house and me. Sleep didn't come easily. I kept listening. Somewhere after midnight, I heard my name. It was faint, almost gentle. I sat up so fast my neck hurt. "Hello?" I whispered. Silence. I told myself it had been part of a dream, hypnagogic hallucination. I'd read about those, your brain filling in gaps as you drift between states. I lay back down, then I heard it again, clearer this time. "Hey." It came from the hallway. I stared at my door. "Who's there?" I asked. The words felt stupid the moment they left my mouth. No answer. I lay frozen, staring at the sliver of light beneath the door. It flickered, as if someone had passed in front of it. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached for my phone and texted my parents. "Me. Did you forget something?" The message sent. No reply. Another sound followed, soft footsteps on the carpet, slow, barely audible. They stopped right outside my door. I could hear breathing, not heavy, not rushed, patient. The handle turned, just enough to test it. Locked. The breathing stopped. I held my breath, afraid even the sound of air leaving my lungs would give me away. Footsteps retreated. I stayed awake the rest of the night, staring at the door, waiting for it to open. It didn't. The next day, everything felt wrong in a quieter way. The house smelled different, damp, stale, like it hadn't been opened in years, even though windows were cracked and doors unlocked. I walked through the rooms, checking corners, closets, behind curtains. Nothing. I told myself fear was contagious. One bad night didn't mean anything. That afternoon, I found something odd in the kitchen. A cup in the sink. I hadn't used it. It was clean, still faintly warm. I stared at it longer than I should have, then rinsed it and put it away. My hands shook. That evening, I locked myself in my room before sunset. I didn't turn the hallway light on this time. I didn't want to see shadows moving where they shouldn't. I lay in bed scrolling endlessly, eyes burning, brain refusing to shut down. Sometime after 2 a.m., the house made a new sound, a door opening, slow, careful, from downstairs. Then another sound followed, someone walking, not wandering, not searching, walking with purpose. Each step moved closer to the stairs. I sat up, clutching my phone. The steps climbed. 1, 2, 3. They paused halfway. I could almost picture it, whatever it was, standing there, listening, learning the house the way I had my entire life. Then it continued. The steps stopped at the top. The hallway floor creaked. The sound moved toward my room. The door handle turned, locked. A pause, then a knock. Soft, almost polite. "Why are you hiding?" a voice asked. It was familiar, too familiar. It sounded like me. "I live here," it continued. "Don't you remember?" I screamed. The knocking stopped. Footsteps retreated, faster this time. I didn't chase, I didn't move. I sat there until dawn, shaking. On the third night, the power went out. No storm, no warning, just darkness. The house felt enormous in the dark, like the walls had pulled back to make room for something else. My phone's flashlight cut weakly through the black, catching corners that didn't look right, angles slightly off, shadows deeper than they should be. I heard whispers, not words at first, just murmurs layered over each other, coming from inside the walls. I pressed my hands over my ears. They didn't stop. "They left you," one voice said. "They always do," said another. I backed into my room and slammed the door. The whispers followed, from the closet, from under the bed, from the ceiling. My phone buzzed. A message appeared, from my own number. "You talk to yourself when you're scared." I dropped the phone. The bed creaked as weight pressed into it beside me. Something lay down. I couldn't see it. I could feel it. The mattress dipped. The sheets tightened. A breath brushed my ear. "You gave me a name," it whispered. "I learned it." I screamed until my throat burned. They found me in the morning, curled in the corner of my room, nails bleeding where I dug them into the floorboards. They said I'd had a breakdown. They said the house was empty. They said there were no signs of anyone else. They moved me out 2 weeks later. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in a new place, I hear it. Soft, patient, calling my name, and I know I taught it how to sound human. The first night alone in the house, nothing happened. That's important, because if something had happened right away, I might have trusted myself later. My parents left on a Thursday morning. Business trip. 3 nights. I watched them load the car, listened to the radio through the open window, smelled coffee and exhaust and normal life. When they drove away, I didn't feel scared. I felt proud. 20 years old, trusted with the house, trusted with myself. I locked the door after them. Then I unlocked it. Then I locked it again. I told myself I was just being careful. The house had always been strange. Not haunted, not creepy in the obvious way. It was just old and narrow, full of rooms that didn't quite align. Doors that opened wider than expected. Corners where sound behaved strangely. You could hear whispers from the vents sometimes. Just airflow, according to my father. That first night, I cooked dinner, watched TV, went to bed early. Nothing happened. The second night, I started to notice things, small things. The hallway clock was ticking louder than usual. The refrigerator hummed in an uneven rhythm. When I walked through the living room, the air felt colder near the far wall, like an invisible door had been left open. I told myself, houses change when people leave them. I went upstairs around midnight and brushed my teeth. When I returned to my room, my bedspread was folded differently than I'd left it, neater, tighter. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. I almost laughed, almost convinced myself I'd done it without thinking. Still, I locked my door that night. I dreamed of standing in the hallway, calling my own name. The echo never came back. On the third night, something went wrong. I realized it around 9:30 p.m. while watching TV downstairs. The volume dipped suddenly, then returned to normal. I frowned and checked the remote. The batteries were fine. Then the TV volume dropped again and again, each time lower than before. "Stop," I said without really thinking. The volume returned to normal. I stared at the screen. That was when I noticed the reflection. Behind me, in the black glass of the TV, the hallway looked longer than it should have been. The walls stretched back into darkness, the doorway narrower, like I was looking down a tunnel instead of a hall I'd walked through every day of my life. I turned around. The hallway looked normal. When I looked back at the TV, the reflection was gone. I shut the TV off. The silence felt thick, like humidity. I checked the doors. Front door locked, back door locked, windows shut, basement door closed. I hesitated there, hand on the knob. The basement always made me uneasy. Not fear, just discomfort, like standing too close to someone who didn't blink. I locked it. Then I went upstairs. I didn't turn the hallway light off. I lay on my bed scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself. Every few minutes, I felt the urge to look at the door. I resisted it until I couldn't. The door was closed. I was sure I'd left it open. I sat up. The handle turned slowly, not enough to open it, just enough to test the lock. I froze, breath locked in my chest. The handle stopped. Silence. Then a soft scraping sound came from the other side of the door, like fingernails dragging gently across the wood. "Who's there?" I whispered. The scraping stopped. A voice answered, not loud, not threatening. "It's okay," it said. "You're home." My heart hammered. "I'm alone," I said. There was a pause. Then the voice replied, confused. "No, you're not." The handle twisted again, harder this time. I screamed and backed away, grabbing my phone and dialing my parents. No signal. I tried 911, no service. My phone showed full bars, but no calls would go through. The scraping returned, slow, patient. "You weren't supposed to notice yet," the voice said. It sounded like it was right against the door. "Notice what?" I asked, my voice breaking. The scraping stopped. Footsteps moved away. I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of my room, watching the door until sunrise. Daylight made the house feel ashamed. The walls seemed closer together, the air stale. I walked through every room, every corner, looking for signs of intrusion. Nothing. No scratches on the door, no disturbed furniture, no footprints, except one thing. In the guest room, the bed was unmade. I never went in there. The imprint on the mattress was fresh, like someone had just stood up. The shape wasn't human, not quite. I left the room and shut the door. That afternoon, I found my old childhood drawings in a box in the attic. I don't know why I went up there. Something pulled me. Crayon drawings, stick figures, houses with windows too big for the walls. One drawing made my stomach twist. It was the hallway, longer than it should be. At the end, a dark shape stood with too many arms. At the bottom, in my childish handwriting, were the words, "He lives here." I didn't remember drawing that. I didn't remember a lot of things. That night, the house stopped pretending. I was in my room when the lights flickered once, then went out completely. The hallway light vanished. My lamp died. Darkness pressed in from all sides. I reached for my phone. It vibrated. A message appeared. From my own number. "You left me alone." "I don't understand," I said aloud, shaking. The house answered. The walls creaked. not randomly, but rhythmically, like breathing. The floor beneath me shifted. "You promised," the voice said, no longer coming from one direction. It was everywhere. I was a room once. The floorboards bent upward slightly, like ribs. I was quiet. I stayed where you put me. The closet door slid open by itself. Darkness spilled out, not empty darkness, but thick, layered, moving. "You talked to me," the voice whispered. "You listened. You imagined me." Something stepped out of the closet. It wore my shape badly, limbs too long, head tilted at the wrong angle. Its face was familiar but unfinished, like a memory that never settled properly. "I kept you company," it said, "when no one else did." I fell backward, crawling toward the wall. "You don't remember," it said softly. "That's okay. I remember enough for both of us." The room stretched. The hallway beyond the door lengthened, pulling away. "You can't leave," it said. "This is where you learn to be alone." It reached out. The house groaned, shifting, rearranging itself around us. "I don't want to be alone anymore," I screamed. When my parents came home, the house was normal. Too normal. They found me asleep on my bedroom floor, dehydrated, shaking, clutching my phone. They said I'd locked myself in. They said the doors hadn't been opened in days. They said the house was fine. But sometimes, when I'm alone now, even in other places, I feel the air change. I hear a familiar voice behind me. "You noticed me once," it whispers, "and houses don't forget." The first mistake I made was speaking out loud. I was alone in the house for the first time in years, not for an hour, not for an evening, for 3 nights. My parents had driven out of town before dawn, leaving a note on the kitchen counter and a reminder to lock everything. I watched their car disappear through the front window, the red taillights shrinking until they vanished beyond the trees. When the sound of the engine faded, the house felt heavier. Not quiet. Aware. I told myself that was stupid. Houses weren't alive. They didn't notice when someone was alone inside them. They didn't change. Still, I locked the door behind them and slid the deadbolt into place. Then I checked the back door, then the windows, then the door again. The house was old, older than me, older than my parents. It had narrow hallways and uneven floors, and a staircase that groaned no matter how softly you stepped on it. At night it smelled faintly of dust and wood and something else I couldn't name. I kept all the lights on that first evening. I made dinner and ate at the table instead of my room, pretending the empty chairs didn't bother me. The ticking of the clock sounded louder than usual. Every tick echoed. Tick, tick, tick. "Relax," I said out loud. The house creaked in response. I laughed nervously. "See? Just noise." The sound stopped. That should have unsettled me more than it did. Around 10 p.m., I went upstairs to my bedroom. I shut the door but didn't lock it. This was my house. I'd lived here my entire life. Locking myself in felt ridiculous. I left the hallway light on. That was my second mistake. I lay in bed scrolling through my phone, listening to the familiar sounds of the house settling, pipes knocking, wood shifting, normal things. Then I heard something that wasn't normal. Someone cleared their throat. It came from downstairs. I froze. The sound was unmistakable, human, deliberate, impatient. "Hello," I called out, hating the tremor in my voice. Nothing answered. I waited, my heart hammering. Maybe it was the TV downstairs. Maybe it was a recording and a video I'd left playing. I stood and opened my bedroom door. The hallway was empty. The stairs descended into darkness, the downstairs lights now off. I was certain I'd left them on. I hadn't turned them off. "I'm just tired," I muttered. The house creaked again. I stared at the walls, suddenly aware of how narrow the hallway felt. "Stop," I said quietly. The creaking stopped. I didn't sleep much that night. The second night was worse. I spent the day trying to convince myself nothing was wrong. I cleaned, cooked, kept the TV on constantly. Noise was comforting. Silence felt like an invitation. By evening, exhaustion weighed on me. My nerves were shot. Every shadow looked wrong. Around midnight, I heard footsteps, not creaks, footsteps. They moved slowly across the downstairs floor, pausing occasionally as if whoever, or whatever, was walking was listening. I stood at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister. "Mom," I called, even though I knew better. The footsteps stopped. Then they turned toward the stairs, one step, then another. I backed away, my breath shallow. "No," I whispered. The steps stopped halfway up. Silence stretched. Then a voice spoke from below, not loud, not threatening, familiar. "Why are you hiding?" It sounded like me. My stomach dropped. "That's not funny," I said, though my voice cracked. The voice replied instantly. I didn't laugh. The stairs creaked as something shifted its weight. I ran back into my room and slammed the door shut, locking it this time. My hands shook as I dialed my parents. No answer. I texted them. No response. I called a friend, straight to voicemail. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, phone clutched in both hands. From the hallway, I heard footsteps approach. They stopped outside my room. A pause. Then, a knock. 3 slow taps. I held my breath. "I know you're awake," the voice said. It was still mine. "Perfectly." "You left the light on." The hallway light clicked off. Darkness seeped under the door. I screamed. The knocking stopped. Footsteps retreated. I stayed awake until dawn, staring at the door, waiting for it to open. It didn't. The third night, I decided I was done being afraid. Fear only works when you feed it. I told myself that as I locked every door and window, as I checked the basement door twice, as I dragged a chair under my bedroom handle, I turned off all the lights except my lamp. "If this is my imagination," I said aloud, "then it ends tonight." The house was silent. Too silent. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Then, the whisper came. Not from outside my room, from inside it. "You finally noticed." I sat up so fast my head spun. The lamp flickered. "Where are you?" I demanded. The whisper came again, closer. "Everywhere." The closet door creaked open. I hadn't touched it. The darkness inside seemed deeper than it should have been. "You've been alone before," the voice said gently, "but never like this." My phone buzzed in my hand. A text message from my own number. "You talk too much when you're scared." The bed dipped beside me. Something sat down. I couldn't see it. I could feel it. Weight pressed into the mattress. Cold seeped through the sheets. "I don't want to hurt you," the voice said. "I just don't want to be alone anymore." I couldn't move. The lamp went out. In the darkness, something leaned close to my ear. "You invited me when you spoke to the house." I felt breath on my skin. "You listened." The pressure lifted. The bed rose. Footsteps moved away. The closet door closed. Light flooded the room as the lamp turned back on. I was alone again. I didn't sleep. In the morning, my parents came home early. I didn't tell them everything, just enough to explain the bags under my eyes, the shaking hands. They laughed gently, said the house always made noises, said being alone can play tricks on the mind. That night, with everyone home, I finally slept, until I heard someone whisper from the hallway. "See? It's better when you're not alone." I never speak to the house anymore, but sometimes, when the night is quiet, it speaks to me anyway. I didn't realize how loud a house could be until I was the only one inside it. When my family left that evening, the door shut with a finality that made my chest tighten. I stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to their footsteps fade down the driveway, then to the engine starting, then to nothing at all. Silence rushed in to replace them. I locked the door, then checked it again. I always did that when I was alone. Habit, I told myself, not fear. The house was 2 stories, old but well kept, full of narrow hallways and rooms that didn't quite line up the way they should. It had been built before modern floor plans, before open concepts and wide windows. Every room felt separate, isolated, private. That night, it felt like the house was holding its breath. I tried to distract myself, made food, left the TV on, walked from room to room, turning on lights as I went, creating small islands of safety in the dark. Still, I kept glancing over my shoulder. I was alone until morning. That was the plan. One night. Easy. At around 10, I went upstairs to my bedroom. I closed the door but didn't lock it. I never locked my door inside the house. Felt paranoid. I regretted that later. I lay on my bed scrolling through my phone, the TV murmuring in the background. At some point, I heard something that made me sit up. A sound from downstairs, not a bang, not a creak, a thud, followed by a faint dragging noise. I paused the TV. The sound stopped. My heart was already racing. I listened, counting my breaths. Houses make noise, I reminded myself. Old houses especially. Then it happened again. Thud, drag, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. "Hello," I called out, hating how small my voice sounded. No answer. I stood and opened my bedroom door just enough to look into the hallway. The lights were on. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The noise came again, closer this time, from the bottom of the stairs. I closed the door quietly and locked it. I didn't know why I suddenly felt certain someone was in the house. Not a fear, not a guess, a certainty. I grabbed my phone and texted my mother. "Me, did anyone come back for something?" The reply came almost immediately. "Mom, no. Why?" My fingers felt numb. "Me, I think someone's here." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Mom, call the police." I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if it was nothing? I imagined explaining it all to an operator and sounding ridiculous. While I hesitated, something happened that removed all doubt. Footsteps started climbing the stairs, slow, careful. Each step creaked under deliberate weight. They stopped halfway up, then continued. I pressed myself against the wall, phone shaking in my hand, and called 911. The operator picked up as the footsteps reached the top of the stairs. She asked for my address. I whispered it. "Stay on the line," she said. "Is your door locked?" "Yes." "Good. Stay quiet." The footsteps moved down the hallway, not rushing, exploring. I heard a hand brush against the wall outside my room, the sound of skin on paint, slow, curious. The handle turned, locked, a pause, then a soft knock. 1, 2, 3. My stomach twisted. "I know you're awake," a man's voice said through the door. It was calm, almost gentle. "I just want to talk." I didn't respond. The operator whispered instructions in my ear, but her voice sounded far away. The handle turned again, harder this time, still locked. The man sighed. "Wrong room," he said, almost to himself. His footsteps moved away. I nearly collapsed with relief. Minutes passed, nothing happened. The operator stayed on the line, telling me help was coming. I started to believe it was over. Then my phone vibrated. A text message. Unknown number. "Your room smells like lavender." My blood ran cold. Another message followed. "I like it." I stared at the door, waiting for the handle to move again. It didn't. Instead, I heard a new sound. The basement door opening. I'd forgotten to lock it. The operator asked what was happening. I told her, my voice shaking. "Stay where you are," she said. "Do not go downstairs." I heard footsteps below me now, not walking, running. Something slammed into the basement door from the inside. Once, twice, then silence. My phone buzzed again. "I don't like the basement." Another text came before I could process that one. Too dark, too crowded. Crowded? I heard the footsteps again, back on the stairs, moving faster this time. No knocking now. The handle twisted violently. The door shook. Wood cracked. I screamed as the door splintered inward, the lock tearing free. I backed away, tripped, hit the floor hard. The door burst open. A shape filled the doorway. I couldn't see his face clearly, only a silhouette against the hallway light, tall, thin, too still. He tilted his head, studying me. "I told you I just wanted to talk," he said. Sirens wailed outside. The man's head snapped toward the window. He smiled. "I'll see you again." Then he was gone. Police arrived moments later. They searched the house, the basement, the yard. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no evidence anyone had ever been there. They told me I'd locked the basement door. I hadn't. They told me stress can cause hallucinations. It wasn't stress. Because weeks later, after my family moved out of that house, I found something in my phone. A draft text, time-stamped for that night. A message I never remembered typing. It said, "I'm home." I used to think being home alone was peaceful. That's the lie I told myself the night everything went wrong. My parents left just before sunset, their car lights sweeping across the living room walls like pale ghosts before disappearing down the street. I stood in the doorway and waved until the sound of the engine faded, then locked the door. Top lock, bottom lock, chain. I remember checking twice. I always checked twice. The house felt different the moment they were gone. Not quiet, hollow. Our home was old, one of those houses that creaked and sighed like it was breathing. The floors complained when you walked, and the walls whispered when the temperature changed. I'd grown up with those sounds, learned to ignore them. That night they felt louder, sharper. I told myself it was just my imagination. I was alone for the weekend. No siblings, no pets, just me and a house that suddenly felt too big. I made dinner, ate it standing at the counter, scrolling through my phone to avoid thinking about the empty rooms behind me. Every time I heard a sound, my shoulders tensed. Pipes knocking, wood settling, normal things. Still, I kept glancing down the hallway. Around 9 p.m., I locked all the windows. I always do when I'm alone. I checked the front door again, then the back door, then the front door once more just to be sure. Everything was secure. That should have been the end of it. I went upstairs to my bedroom and turned on the TV. Not to watch anything, just for the noise. Silence felt dangerous, like if the house went completely quiet, something else would fill it. I lay on my bed, phone in hand, half listening to some show I didn't care about. Time blurred. My eyes grew heavy. That's when I heard it. A sound from downstairs. Not a creak, not a knock, a footstep, slow, deliberate. I froze. The TV kept playing, laugh track echoing through my room, mocking me. I held my breath, straining to listen. Another step, then another. They weren't random. They had weight, direction. Someone was walking through my house. My heart started pounding so hard, I was sure they could hear it. I slid off the bed and locked my bedroom door as quietly as I could, my hands shaking so badly the key rattled. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents. "Me. Did one of you come back?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Nothing. I crept toward my door and pressed my ear against it. Silence. For a moment I wondered if I imagined it. Fear can do that, turn shadows into monsters. Then something downstairs fell over. The crash echoed through the house. I nearly screamed. I backed away from the door, dialing 911 but not pressing call yet. My mind raced. What if it was a burglar? What if they were armed? What if calling made noise? Another sound followed, a drawer sliding open. They weren't rushing, they were looking. I texted my parents again. Me. Someone is in the house. I'm scared. This time the response came fast. Mom, call the police, now. I pressed call. The operator answered calm and steady, grounding me just enough to speak. I whispered my address, explained I was alone, that someone was inside. She told me to stay quiet, to stay locked in my room. Help was on the way. I sat on the floor, my back against the bed, clutching my phone like it was a weapon. Every sound from downstairs felt closer than the last. Footsteps on the stairs, slow, heavy. Each step creaked like the house itself was screaming a warning. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. Then, A knock. 3 soft taps. "Hello," a voice said. It was calm, friendly, too friendly. "Is anyone home?" I didn't answer. The handle jiggled, looked. Silence followed, long enough for hope to creep back in. Then the voice spoke again, right against the door. "I know you're in there." My blood turned to ice. "I just want to talk." The operator was still on the line, whispering that police were minutes away. Minutes felt like hours. The door handle stopped moving. I heard footsteps retreating down the hall. Relief flooded me so fast I nearly cried. Then something happened that didn't make sense. My phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. "Why did you lock the door?" I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. Another message arrived. "You always forget the basement." My stomach dropped. The basement. I hadn't checked the basement. A loud bang echoed from downstairs. The operator's voice grew urgent. "What's happening?" Before I could answer, the power cut out. The TV died. The lights went black. The house plunged into darkness. The call disconnected. My phone screen was the only light left. I scrambled to my feet, panic overwhelming me. I tried calling back. No signal. Tried texting my parents. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. A photo message. I didn't want to open it. I did anyway. It was my living room, taken from inside the house. The angle was wrong, low, like someone crouching behind the couch. The timestamp read 1 minute ago. Another photo followed. The staircase, my staircase, the bottom step. Then a final message. "I'm coming back upstairs." I heard the first step creak, then the second. My door handle rattled violently now. I backed into the corner of my room, searching for anything to defend myself. A lamp, a chair, anything. The knocking returned, harder this time. "Open the door," the voice said, no longer friendly. I screamed. Wood cracked. The door splintered inward as something slammed against it again and again. I raised the lamp, sobbing, preparing for the worst. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed through my window. Sirens screamed. The footsteps fled down the hall. A final crash sounded from downstairs as the back door burst open. Police flooded the house minutes later. They found the back door broken, drawers open, furniture overturned. But they didn't find anyone. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry upstairs. They told me I was lucky. They told me it was probably someone who'd been watching the house. They told me it was over. They were wrong. Because when my parents came home and I finally crawled into bed, exhausted and shaken, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. Next time, don't forget the basement door. I checked the basement the next morning. It was unlocked. And inside, carved into the wall in uneven, shaky letters, was a message. You were never alone. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.